everybody. This is episode 25 of the Real Talk podcast, presented by Reform Perspective. I always forget to say that, and we are very grateful to Reform Perspective. So
nice and formal.
I just wanted to get that in there.
Oh, hey, that was something I never mentioned before.
What's that?
When Art Whitten in our last episode was listing lovely publications.
Oh, yeah.
Conveniently, our lovely sponsor.
We failed. Dereliction of duty.
It was pretty bad.
Yeah.
It was pretty bad.
So,
we listened back to that. I felt like cutting all the names out and just
putting Reform Perspective in there.
Reform Perspective. Over top, but didn't do that.
Anyways,
we're not that good editors. So.
No, we're not. But we're quite thankful to Reform Perspective, and here we are, 25 episodes in, so that's pretty cool. And so today we're doing a general feedback episode. It's been a while since we've done one of these, so we're just going to talk about the last couple episodes. We had Ryan Campen on. We talked about all the work he's doing and his the mission projects they have going on there. And we also had Ryan Manns on, talked about basically a politics update, kind of what ARPA's doing and what his job is as the Ontario manager over there. And then the most recent one obviously was with Art Whitten, Dr. Art Whitten on the church order. So the church order one actually generated the most kind of feedback and discussion, which, I mean, between politics and I guess mission, it still kind of makes some sense, I guess, because apparently people get not necessarily riled up, but
well, it's hard to disagree with what ARPA's doing necessarily. So.
Yeah, ARPA's just doing a good job, and I mean, they're doing a great job with the mission work there in Africa as well, or Reform Study Center.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, maybe we should tell people why they're just listening to us today because it's
true. Yeah, well, I mean, it is actually time for a feedback episode, anyways.
But we hadn't planned a feedback episode.
You know, so
we're disappointed that we're here, just the two of us.
The issue du jour, as it were, is obviously COVID. And
is it ever?
Definitely is. And yeah, we're in Ontario here. We're still in state of lockdown as we shoot this. It's currently May 11th, 2021 for the future.
I guess we got to say that for our foreign listeners.
Yeah, I mean, we got a few. a couple of the Aussies that tune in. Appreciate them. And some random Europeans.
Yeah, so we are in a state of severe lockdown.
It's
stay-at-home order.
So it's obviously we're more than a year into this, so everyone's kind of trying to weigh the pros and the cons and how does the church respond, and should the church continue to stay closed and just do online services? Should the church reopen full bore, or should there be some sort of middle ground position? Who is the authority? Is the government overstepping, or is it still?
Yeah, we talked about it a bit with Andre Schuten on our third episode.
Episode 3, yeah.
But that was like last spring, wasn't it?
No, not quite. Last
Fall?
Summer, August.
Summer.
Yeah, we've only been doing this since July.
Oh yeah, okay, fair enough. Yeah. But I mean, that was early. Now we're a year and a bit into it.
We're about due for an update, and I think
we're on our third lockdown or fourth lockdown. What are we on?
Third and fourth. Now we're talking about the fourth wave. So
fourth wave.
Time for some clarity, I think, on this issue. Time for some honest discussion, and we're looking forward to doing that. We were hoping to have Pastor Aaron Rock. He's from Windsor, Ontario, from a Harvest Bible Church there.
Harvest, yeah, I think that's.
He has his own podcast, which I would encourage you guys to check out.
Maybe
before you listen to ours.
You can give us some feedback before we do our episode.
Yeah, exactly.
It's called Leadership Now, I think, with Dr. Aaron Rock.
Yeah, and he's
check that out.
Yeah, I think he's thought out the issue very thoroughly and very well. And he's taken a pretty strong stance, and their churches continue to stay open. Although now they had a bit of a run-in with the police on Sunday, we understand. So,
and that's why we're here together, because we
had to postpone the episode a bit. So
Aaron was supposed to join us tonight for a Zoom
podcast, but couldn't happen.
I think it was some kind of legal summons.
But definitely check out his podcast, because we don't want this to be like some sort of one-sided conversation on this issue and preaching at you guys. We want to, as we've always said with this podcast, like have a discussion, create a platform for real conversation. I mean, to be honest, both of us are leaning towards some sort of opening approach, whatever that is exactly is still yet to be determined, but that's kind of the direction where both of our heads are at. So if you're someone who feels differently on COVID and you're thinking more, in the play it safe direction and just keep listening to the government, we do want to hear from you. We want to hear like what are the best arguments for this, and obviously as using scripture as your basis. Let's have this conversation. I know some people might find it to be overwrought, but it seems to us that people are kind of just everyone is just sticking with their opinions, and it's not going to go well if we don't continue to at least have the conversation.
Yeah,
and hopefully we can move forward on something.
I mean, we'll get into this with Aaron. Just historically, I think this is a moment now. Everyone likes to say, I'm actually going to ask Aaron this when we do this, so maybe this is a precursor, but how do you feel as like a historical figure? Like everyone kind of wants to have their moment where they feel that they're being special, right? And I think that's like really alive in the States. Like you see these protests and things, and it's almost like these people want to be looked back, like people to look back on them with favor.
They desire to be like martyrs.
Yeah,
and there's a bit of that
martyr for the cause. So like, and I see it on both ends. Like, okay, well, let's lock down. Let's listen for as long as it takes. We will be the people that beat it, and the world will look at our church and say, "Wow, like you guys,
good witness,
stayed closed, good witness." Yeah. And the other side is like, I want to be the guy who opened his church and got going, and then
stood up to
when everyone else is open.
Yeah,
they're gonna be like, that guy was first. And it's like, yeah, okay, we all want to be like in the sun, like, and even maybe like it feels like us being here, but like I'm not in any way interested in that. I just want like we actually got to like figure this thing out, because we got to come through this thing unified as a church, but also we got to come through this thing. And at some point, we're going to have these hard conversations. And so we're not really chasing after, even though we were like, this could be a really well listened to episode. I'm not really interested in that so much as like, just want to get this conversation going, get it out. Because,
and we both feel like it's so much the conversation of everybody today as well. Like it's just everywhere. Yeah. It's odd for us not to address it. So I think we should be upfront. We should be open and honest and have the conversation. And that's not to say it'll be the last COVID conversation. I'm sure it won't be. Like if people have different suggestions for different guests to get on, who wrote that? Sorry, my memory's blanking. Doctor wrote a long piece, multiple pages.
Oh, Dr. Van Vliet.
There we go.
Yeah. But it was I think that was pretty early on, though. He's wrote a revised version of it too.
Yeah.
On how to deal with this. And then there's been a lot of articles. James Fisher wrote a good article on I did Clarion or Reform Perspective.
Yeah, I read that one too. Yeah.
Reform Perspective. That's what it was. I don't know if it was Reform Perspective.
I think it was Clarion, but
shucks.
Another reputable publication. Yeah. So. Anyways, so that's kind of where we're at. We don't need to delve through it all today.
Yeah, but hopefully that's our next episode. So hopefully we get him on next week or week after. Get that one out, because it's really relevant right now. And he's just going through the stuff in Windsor, in his church, which doesn't really seem like a main hub for lockdown. But he's right in the middle of it. So hopefully he's got some good things to say. And then also like he's a very level-headed guy. So check out his podcast and let us know your thoughts, as radical as they may be,
or as not radical.
Whatever. We'd love to hear it.
Yeah, we want to hear them all.
Yeah, and actually, one other thing: how do we open up if we decide there's a middle road? We should open our churches. What are some good policies? Some good things that we can, some actual things that we can actually do to maybe communicate to the government. Also, like actual health policies, because we're not health officers, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
If we were, you would listen to us.
Maybe. Okay, so now for the feedback on the church order episode, because we had some good discussion on that as well. So I think first of all, people just appreciated it, just because it's not an oft-discussed topic. So,
oft. Yeah, that's not an oft-used word.
Correct. I know. I like to stretch the old vocabulary from time to time.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting topic that young people like to, are aware of, but older people are, more aware of maybe.
Yeah.
how it works, and so we honestly thought when we started that episode that we didn't know if we were going to have a ton to talk about, that we were going to be like, oh, this might be a little boring.
Yep.
Because it's, governance seems like a dry issue. Mm-hmm. But when we got into research and all the things that the church order really, like the umbrella that it covers, like, it really came to life.
One comment we got from a listener was, this is a quote here. He says, "My personal experience is that we use the church order to control each other rather than care for each other." So, and of course, we had lots more discussion after this, but basically that sort of sentiment is saying that the church order can be overbearing at times and be used in a negative way that takes away from the intention of what it was actually designed to do, which is create a structure in which to have a church that can flourish and grow and produce the fruits of the Spirit in an orderly manner.
Yeah, I think we mentioned this before somewhere, but the limitation is freedom, really. Like,
yeah, I mean, you can't have, like, anarchy. That's not freedom. So you need a set of rules, and there's always going to be that tension between, do we have too many rules, or not enough, I guess. And then so you need that tension between like rules and the order side of things, and also like change and creativity on the other side of the ledger, and those need to work in tandem. Because you can't have too many rules, but you also can't have no rules.
Yeah,
and you do need the church order. I think it is a good thing, but I mean, I guess to the point of the church order too, like we talked with Dr. Whitten about this, like it is changeable, but it is a high standard to change. So it's understandable if you are someone who wants to create change in your church, but you feel like you're being restricted, that you might tend to blame the church order.
Yeah.
But the church order is very much like allows to be changed. Like it's literally written in the last section of it.
Yeah,
like
the last article is
change if the interests of the churches demand such, they may and ought to be changed, augmented, or diminished. However, no consistory classes or regional synods shall be permitted to do so, but shall endeavor diligently to observe the articles of this church order, as long as they have not been changed by a general synod.
See, that sounds reasonable. So we've had this for, I don't know, like we talked about going back into the Reformation days, right? Like we're 500 years, maybe not quite, having this document.
About.
I mean, it's changed obviously, but it doesn't claim to be a perfect document, which I find is like its biggest strength. It's like this worked for us, now make it work for you, but make it work. Don't just dismiss it because there's something here that's worth.
Don't throw the baby out the bathwater.
Yeah, exactly.
But there are some issues, like people take the issues of borders. Like for some folks, borders are kind of this silly, bureaucratic, useless thing. What's that?
I don't think there is an issue or an article about borders.
I don't think there's an article about borders. It's a tradition in our churches. So that's actually not even a church order thing per se. But it is to the point of, is that just one of these overbearing rules that we have that we don't really need to have? I don't know. Like the point of borders is supposed to create a healthy local church that can flourish because it has a diversity of views from the surrounding area. So it includes everybody in your town, say, or this area, this block of your city. And then you get all different types in a church, and that creates a flourishing congregation that is fruitful and pleasing to God.
Yeah.
But I suppose on the other side of the ledger, it can be used to control people, like the original comment from the listener as well. So
yeah,
it's tricky. I'm not sure what the right answer is on that.
I wonder if we put too much emphasis on that disparity, or that us versus them kind of attitude, that
church
it's like
to church,
creative versus not creative, or because we were chatting a bit about this, and just our own views about borders and how we view that, and the borders serve a purpose in creating diversity, where we always view them to be, or we're inclined to view them as restrictive, because border is restriction. Right. But borders are freeing in that when you have a border, you're allowing the people who live in a certain area, though they might not be collectively as liberal or conservative as another group within borders. Right. You might have a city that's more liberal than a country that's less liberal. Sure. Well, you have a diversity of people there who live there. And so when you gather all those people based on literal geography into a church, you have a diversity of people, not not something that's restrictive. You have something that's free. So you have a collection of ideas from a diverse group that happens to live near each other. It's not that, people, maybe generally might arrange, in the country or the city like that, but you will always have liberal-minded people and conservative-minded people in those areas.
Sure.
And that really brings out something in a church that helps it to grow, helps it to be creative. Then you have certain a number of people pushing for good change, and then you have a certain number of people really hanging on to the traditions and then
pushing back against the bad change.
And then we use this church order as a tool to help guide us through those discussions together. If it's all done in love, then it's like, I mean, you can make it sound really rosy when you put it in these terms, but it does help guide people through the discussion. Yeah. And so, and the fact that it's open to being changed is evidence that, that cooperation should be there with everybody.
Yeah. Right? It seems to me it might not be a structural problem per se with the church order. Because really, okay, if you think about it, a general synod can change something. Okay, well, that's a 3-year, you have a 3-year wait to change something. But okay, if you're going to change something of the magnitude that it affects the church order, it's probably something that should be considered for at least a 3-year period.
Well, 100%. So it's not just going to affect you.
Right.
Right. Exactly. This is going to affect hundreds, thousands of people across the country.
Yeah.
So yeah, in a way, like it does hold weight to change this document. So, and if you read what's in there, it's not little things like even borders isn't in there.
But the problem I could see for people who would want change sooner is, and they might attribute this to the church order, whereas that might be an improper attribution. I think it's actually more of a culture of those who in our churches, which is, okay, if there's any sort of risk or any sort of newness or change to it, like bat it down. Like, no, like stasis. Like we need to maintain what we have. Right. Which, to a certain degree is a valuable thing. And that's why we've been able to maintain the faithful traditions and structures that we have today. That's why our churches, while not like growing by leaps and leaps and bounds, are at least doing okay. Mm-hmm. I would say treading water at minimum, and certainly some are growing in a lot of different areas.
Yeah, I think there's a lot.
There's a lot of positive signs.
Yeah. So,
but so maybe it's more of, again, we always come back to this point, but just the open conversation and dialogue between people of different perspectives within the Reformed circles to say, okay, we're not trying to burn this whole thing down, and we're not all against the church order. We're not saying throw it all out. We're saying specifically, and say in this instance on this article, we would like to change this.
Right.
And this isn't, again, like, repudiating like the entire system.
Yeah.
Just this issue. And if the people who are more, if the conservative types that are more guarding the traditions can engage in honest dialogue with the more liberal types and say, okay, like we take out your word. This isn't some big, once you do this, not everything is a slippery slope.
Right.
Some things are, but not everything.
But we have those conversations. We're having that about like the Psalm book. Like, we've talked about the Psalm book.
Songs are kind of an issue there.
Right. So like, and so maybe the point is to be the church order is too restrictive about the number of psalms we can sing. Well, there's conversation back and forth on why that is. I think we touched on
and there is change ongoing in that regard.
But there's change ongoing. Like it is a discussion. And I think that could be the right way to do it. Like if you think a 3-year cycle to add psalms to a psalm book, like, I don't know, that's not that long to me. Like,
no,
I'm young and that's not that long. Right?
Yeah, fair enough.
Like you think of how many changes there have been in it, like some of the elderly people in our church, how many changes they've had to their psalm book. Yeah. I already have 3 copies that are different.
Yep.
So, I'm not making a point to how easy they are to learn or whatever, but like there has been change in that regard. So I think it is, the flexibility is there, and as long as there's as long as there's a drive to do that from people in the, like, it's being accepted at General Synod. It's not like it's not like to that point, like the original point, it can be used to control, but I don't think that in general it is. Like, I think at General Synod, there's honest conversation about like, okay, well, is this really because also those issues get elevated through the, classis regional synod and then get there. Like there's clearly some thought being had before it gets there. And so then those brothers give it thought. And so I think that's really well done. We could probably come up with other examples too, right? But
yeah, like we were talking about attestations as well. Like that came up in some of the feedback too. Like, okay.
Attestation is an issue.
Like it's kind of a dumb scenario.
Chatting about this
we were chatting about this prior to going on air, but like it's a stupid scenario in my opinion. That
your opinion.
My opinion. If you're in a candidacy church, you can't get an attestation and go to a free reform church. But
so we were
for me, for example, like in my life, so I moved from Ancaster to St. Catharines recently. So now I'm a URC member now. And
Big change.
Yeah.
Lucas is no longer
Big change. Yeah. Now it's a 50-50 podcast. So URC folks, you have a representative here. But
who's been in your church for a week and a half?
Yeah. Point being, you can go from
virtual church
Canterbury to URC, but you can't, and then go from URC to FRC with no issues.
Right.
But you can't go from Canterbury to FRC. That's dumb.
And I think my rebuttal is that you don't necessarily know everything that's behind that discussion and what discussions have been had. And it's easy to make a nice judgment like, wow, that doesn't seem right. Like, because it doesn't. That seems like an anomaly. Well, maybe the relationship of the KNRC and the FRC is not a good one. Like,
I think it is a good one.
Yeah, but who knows?
No, I mean, I know because I've talked to FRC people.
Yeah, but but
good relationships.
The people and we've had that conversation too. Like, in a lot of homes, we treat the Canadian Reformed Church and the URC Church the same way. And so, like, if you were to marry someone in the URC Church, you just go whatever's closer, and that just seems to be the thing. Well, like, if that's not the case with other churches, like, maybe there's a reason for that.
Yeah, maybe.
And is that really right? Like, from a federation perspective, we should be able to get to a point if we treat each other as if we're obviously just brothers and sisters in Christ. If we treat each other the exact same way, why doesn't our church treat each other the exact same way?
Yeah.
So now, like, these are things we got to get over. But, if there is resistance from one side of that conversation at a synod level, then there may be reason for that. So, and then I think you got to spend some time and actually look into why that is.
Yeah, fair enough.
Right. So then to say, well, I should just be able to do it. It's like, yeah, well, or not. Yeah. Because maybe there's something there. Like, I don't know. I don't even know what it would be. And honestly, I couldn't quite tell you the difference, but I would suspect that it's not just the Psalms we sing.
Yep.
Right. It would be something.
Yep.
And I think that's kind of like what the church order does, right? It helps to, like me, like I'm a new office bearer, and it helps to guide me because I don't know all that, right? Like, so for me to say, oh yeah, you should just go and do whatever. You should go to that church. It's like, well, I go back to the church order and say, oh, okay, this is how we should actually deal with that. Because I kind of need that. I don't know. Right. So,
yeah, there's a lot of wisdom, a lot of,
and it gets that, like, it's a continuity between generations and
true.
Yeah.
And
it's a slow moving thing. So, like, it's not like, if you were to just throw this thing out, then who knows what, my kids, when they become a leader in their church, what that looks like. Right.
And
it's
correct.
Like totally
it's a fair enough point to be worried about too much change too quickly. So,
but the attestation issue is a little more,
seems like one that
a little more broad than that. But yeah, what was the other point you were talking about? You said
another one, like, verse that got brought up too in some of the feedback was Proverbs 14:4, where it says, "Where there are no oxen, the manger is clean, but abundant crops come by the strength of the ox," which is kind of to the point the listener was making. Like,
we need a commentary on that.
Yeah, fair enough. But, like, the church is supposed to always be reforming in the spirit of Reformation. Like, the church doesn't stay the same.
Yeah, which is a core tenet or something of
it's the Reformation. Church. You constantly be
always
reforming the church and reforming constantly. So the church order has that spirit built into it with Article 76 at the end there.
Yeah.
So, like, I think people just maybe have to take another look at it and rediscover it, and from both sides. If you want change or you don't want change, like, take a look. If you're someone who isn't big on change, be look at, like, okay, well, there is a venue for change here, and not everything in the church order is the word of God.
Yeah, no, I get that point, because you can't from a I don't want to change viewpoint. You can't use that church order as a weapon to be like, what, this is how I'm going to make sure there's not going to be change.
Slow things down. Oh yeah,
right. It's like it's like the filibuster. Like, we're just going to filibuster this thing. We're going to send this to the next synod. Well. And but then you get back to the point Art made. He said that's not in a spirit of love and good unity of the church, right? Yeah. Like, you don't care about that issue then. Like, then maybe you shouldn't be on sin.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, I don't think that.
Then you're not dealing with your fellow, Christians and brotherly love.
Like, that's personally, like, I don't think that synod's been doing that, but that could also be like, maybe the church is moving at my pace and not at everyone else's pace.
Fair enough.
I don't know.
Yep. But I mean, the point about good order, like where the church order draws that from too, which is 1 Corinthians 14, I think is still solid. And you want a structure, you want a church order that provides a structure where Christians can flourish inside and produce the godly fruit that we're called to produce within a framework that allows us to do so in an orderly and godlike manner.
Yeah, that was an interesting point.
On the whole, the church order provides that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was an interesting point. That there was like maybe a disparity in that text between good order in the church, as in good liturgy, understandable worship, understandable songs, singing in an orderly way, or having orderly worship, and then also like does that extend into the governance, like do things in good order.
It doesn't actually say good, which good actually might be the key word there, because good for one person might be different than for the other person, right? The verse 40 says, "But all things should be done decently and in order." So just keep it in order. Keep it orderly.
Yeah. So, So, I mean, there may be a bit of an argument to be made that it doesn't extend out into the governance of the church, but I do think that principle is the
principle holds. It's talking about worship. It's talking about liturgy. It's talking about how to run your service.
Right.
And that's just a tighter resolution of how to run your church and how to run your synod, how to run your classes,
run your federation, because your federation really is. Yeah, I mean it gets into a bit of an argument. Like as a Canada Church, we're often accused of being very like, what do you call it? Like,
legalistic.
No, I'm thinking more like
hyper-regulatory.
Yeah, sure. Like every church looks exactly the same.
Yeah.
Right. So if you go fly from here to Langley, looks like, I don't know if it does, but that's the charge. Anyways.
So they tell us.
Right. And I know like a lot of churches around here, like you go there, literally it's the exact same. You walk in a church, like you can expect almost the exact same amount of talking in church beforehand. Right? It's like, we have this much reverence before church. Or, this much, whatever. And then the same with like dressing and all that. Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, I don't know that that's such a thing that we should be like.
I don't know if that's a bad thing, and I also don't know if that'll stay over time, because I think it came more from a shared Dutch culture than anything.
Oh, that could be.
I think that will change over time as places localize more and more. So
that's honestly a good point.
Anyways, we keep rolling through jabbering on.
I got one more thing that got emailed in. Just a clarification. So when we talked to Art, Dr. Witten, about when you send a request to General Synod makes a decision on that, or even like as it's getting to that point. If you believe it to be scriptural, I think we said you should still acquiesce to their decision. But I think there may have been a little bit of a, maybe we didn't catch that or something. But like, I think if a consistory is convicted that they have a biblical view and can make that case, like, I don't know that you should be telling people that they shouldn't do what they think is scriptural. Like, we're into binding the conscience of someone else, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I know that's a tricky one, and I might disagree with the church order on that one. So, time for a proposal, perhaps.
Well, I don't know if it was in there. I just think that was like
that was Art's comment, but maybe
we said in good order. Like, you should just, just listen until you can be proven wrong. That is in the church order.
Like, you have to abide by the decision until it's changed by a higher body.
Yeah, but I don't know that it said directly. It says directly. I think it says unless it is against God's word.
Yep.
So I'd have to dig into that and find that passage, but yeah, it's just some clarification. So I mean, that's definitely something that I would struggle with if it wasn't a scriptural thing. Like, how many psalms do you want to sing? Or songs, hymns. There's only so many psalms to sing, unless you wanted to sing less. If you wanted to sing so many more hymns and then you just went and did that, I think that's, that's not quite in good order. Like, and I think there's, we've been doing the pre-service psalm thing to get away from it, but to that point, it's like, you can acquiesce for a time.
Yep.
You don't need to rise up. But if it's a scriptural problem, then say yeah.
Yep. I mean, we didn't even get into like the calling to office and Article 3 and all that stuff, but perhaps that's another time, because we didn't. That's a whole other kettle of fish, really. But that is interesting too. So, anyways, we should probably wrap her up here. So thanks again, folks, for listening.
Everybody stuck with us. Yeah. Is that all we got?
I think that's probably all we got for the folks today, because we value their time and don't want to waste it. So
fair enough.
We will be
Thanks
back
for your attention
with a new episode 2 weeks.
Yep.
And hopefully it'll be a COVID one. If not,
get us your opinions. Honestly, if you send us pages and pages, we'll read them because we're interested.
Yep, it's important.
Okay, not pages and pages.
But concise is preferred.
Well, yeah, I think that'll be good. Hopefully we get some varying opinions in so that we can challenge Dr. Aaron Rock, but also have a good conversation.
Yep. So speaking of concise, let's wrap her up. Till next time, folks. Keep having real conversations. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Real Talk. You can send us your feedback by emailing us at reformedrealtalk@gmail.com. You can find us on social media by looking for the handle Reformed Real Talk. You can find us online by going to realtalkpodcast.ca. We look forward to your feedback, as that's what helps us grow and improve as podcasters. Real Talk is produced by myself, Lucas Holtfluer, Tyler Vanderwood, and Tim Van Woudenberg. The theme music was created by Calvin Hutton. The table and cabinet behind me were made by Ethan Vanderwood of Eureka Woods. And finally, this sign in the studio was made by Zebra Signs. That's it for now, folks. Catch you next time. Bye-bye.